Following the end of the program, the CB&Q donated 460 to the State Historical Society of Wisconsin. The owner of the CWM and Bob Burrow and the society was required to agree to keep the 4960 in its CB&Q livery. The donation was for the locomotive to become a permanent addition to the CWM's collections, but a light-duty bridge prevented 4960 from entering the Bob Burrow property. The SHSW subsequently asked the nearby Mid-Continent Railway Museum of North Freedom, Wisconsin, to restore the 4960 for them, and the locomotive moved to North Freedom under its own power on July 29th. The following day, 4960 was fired up and moved within the museum's yard. It was the only time 4960 would ever run at the Mid-Continent Railway Museum. However, instead of using 4960 for the Circus World Museum train, they decided to rely on other steam excursion stalls. Group 5629, for example, which is the K4A462 Pacific locomotive purchased by Richard Jensen, the same person that purchased 4960. The reason for this is for the lack of funding. In 1979, the Lonesome Pine Recreation Corporation, led by Harry Keene, acquired the Southern Railway's abandoned 29.6 miles route between Bristol and Moccasin Gap, Virginia, with the intention of turning it into an enterprising tourist operation called the Bristol and Northwestern Railroad, or the BNNW for short. With the 4960 sitting in static display at the Mid-Continent Railway Museum, in November 1980, Harry Keene entered negotiations with the MCLM for leasing 4960 for the Virginia-based operation, despite some museum members being reluctant to let 4960 go. The MCLM agreed to loan the locomotive to the BNNW for a period of 10 years. The BNNW was mandated to agree to keep the locomotive in the CB&Q livery. During the lease, in January 1981, 4960 moved out of North Freedom and shipped on the CNW in Conrail, bound for Jackson, Ohio. Upon arrival in Jackson, the locomotive was moved inside the former Jackson Iron and Steel Company steel mill, where steam locomotive expert Gary Bensman was hired to overhaul and return 4960 into service. With the locomotive being worn out for running for the CB&Q steam program and demand to have it immediately placed into service, the BNNW crew opted to only operate 4960 at the working pressure of 150 psi as opposed to 200 psi, allowing the minimal boiler work to be required. Restoration work complete on March 1st, and 4960 was moved to the BNNW property later that month. 4960 began pulling the BNNW streetcar tourist trains on summer weekends within the eastern end of the route between Bristol and Benham. Along the route, the locomotive had declined a steep 3% grade from Bristol to Haskell. By the end of 1981, the BNNW had held over 10,000 passengers, but the state of the economy and the slump in the coal industry resulted in the lack of BNNW trains being run in 1982. Concerned about the 4960 prolonged inactivity, one BNN volunteer, Robert Franzen, convinced Harold Keene to allow him and other volunteers to repair and run 4960 on the BNNW for a short amount of time in the fall of 1984. By the time the BNNW had informed the MCLM they could no longer run the locomotive, and the group of the Quad Cities area expressed interest in leasing it for a higher price. This is the only footage on YouTube about the 4960 running on the Bristol and Northwestern Railroad. So, yeah, that's all I can find. In March 1985, 4960 moved to the BNNW's Norfolk Southern interchange in Bristol, and then it was sold westbound to New Haven, Indiana. In New Haven, the locomotive was moved to Gary Bensman Shop in Cassett Industrial Park, allowing Bensman to simultaneously work on both 4960 and another steam excursion star that might surprise you, the Complete Road 765, an S2-24 Berkshire owned by the Fort Wayne Railroad Historical Society. However, by the time the move to New Haven was complete, the MCLM asked Bensman to clean up 4960 to attract another lesser buyer, because the Quad City group had disappeared. It is unknown how they disappeared. Luckily, she would have a chance to get a second excursion crew, and that's where I bring us to chapter 3. In early 1989, the Santa Fe Railroad abandoned a 64-mile route between Williams, Arizona and the south rim of the Grand Canyon was being redeveloped into a tourist operation called the Grand Canyon Railway under the guidance of Max and Thelma Bigot. That same year, the Grand Canyon Railway acquired 4X Lake Superior and Ishpeming's two-way consolidation locomotives for use on the route. But Gary Bensman, who worked for the GCR during the company's first year, and for Max Bigot, the 4X60 was also available and suitable for the GCR's requirements. After subsequent negotiations with the MCRM took place, the GCR purchased the 4X60 on September 16, one day before the railway's first train being pulled by another excursion stop, Lake Superior Evening 280 number 18, classified as an SC-4. With Gary Bensman leaving his casket shops, a group of GCR workforce led by Robert Francis began to prepare for an existence to move out of the Cascade Industrial Park, but Ennis informed them that they would not ship the locomotive with the condition of its axles. All 460 wheels were removed and shipped to Ennis Birmingham shops to be reworked, but the problem with the axles led to the work of taking a number of months to complete. The owner of the Cascade became impatient about the wheelless 460s to go along store status in New Haven, so they laid it threat and described the locomotives. The GCR then removed it within 30 days. As a last resort, Francis and his crew opted to cut the boiler from the frame to ship 460 in separate pieces via flat coast to Williams. When restored, 460 will pull more coaches than 18 and 29, both being Lake Superior and Ishpeming. In fall 1993, the Grand Canyon Railway began restoration on 460. However, during her restoration, there was a problem. The GCR workforce had to remove her original tender because it was in poor condition. So they need to find a new tender fast. After looking into a half-dozen options, GCR acquired a large tender that was formerly repaired with Zoo Line 42 mounted number 4012. In May 1996, 4X60 was test-fired, and 2 months later, on July 27, the locomotive emerged from the shops and pulled its first train for the Grand Canyon Railway. During her first run, she looks very different, because during her restoration, some modifications were added, such as the addition of a boiler tube, some cow catchers, and a center-mounted headlight on the smokebox door. But she lost her saving keel livery. Later that year, on the weekend of October 5th through 6th, the Grand Canyon chapter of the National Railway Historical Society hosted a series of photo charters to serve as 460's former GCR depot. In August 2002, the Grand Canyon Railway would have a special guest coming to the railroad. Can you guess what engine it is? I'm pretty sure you watched my first documentary, but it's Santa Fe 443751, as the engine was participating in that year's National Railway Historical Society convention. During the engine's visit, the engine double-headed with a 4X60 and then triple. Wait a second. I talk about this in Santa Fe 3751, California's Dreams. You know what? I'll just roll the clip so I can explain everything. The locomotive also ran on the Grand Canyon Railway and Santa Fe's former Grand Canyon line, as it performed a double header with the 4X60 and then a triple header with the 4X60 again, and then number 18. There is also a night photo section with the 3 steam engines, which I'm going to show right now. Okay, now with that out of the way, I can continue the story of the Chicago Bridge Quincy 4X60. In 2005, the 4X60 performed a double header with number 29, as well as posing side by side in front of the GCV North Depot for some night photo session. Pretty impressive, huh?
Come and and down the line.
In 2007, the GCRY was purchased by the Alexandria Travel Collection. In the following year, the ceased sting operation of the GCRY due to fuel costs and environmental concern. The Fortnite City was put on static display in front of the Williams Depot, with its front pilot steps being removed to prevent people from climbing on board. The following year, the general public's demand for steam operations on the GCRY to return. As in return, the GCRY brought back steam to operate only 2 or 3 times per month. In order to keep operating costs low, Fortnite 60 has been burning recycled waste vegetable oil collected from restaurants at the South Rim and Williams to diesel. This will increase efficiency and decrease metal fatigue, since Fortnite 60 has been burning a cleaner source of fuel. It was earned the nickname the Green Machine, and for that, Fortnite 60 has entered the 2010s, which that'll be the next part.
And don't go riding on that long